Wow, it's hard to believe, man. We're here again and doing Bible study. And remember, this is a little different because we're doing applying the Word of God. And we have Sister LaDonna here today. So, Sister LaDonna, tell us your name, where you're from, and all of those things.
Yes, well, thank you, first of all, for having me here today. It's a blessing to be here.
Right.
My name is LaDonna Thomas. I am originally from Raleigh, born and raised.
Originally from Raleigh?
Yes.
You're one of the only few that
That's
are
right.
originally from Raleigh. Wow.
Born and raised.
And how about it? And so I know you're here at Juniper Level. What are you doing at Juniper Level?
So my home church is Mount Pleasant Baptist Church. And then after a few years, my parents and I, we came to Juniper Level, I want to say in 1999. We've been here ever since.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yes, we love Juniper Level.
Okay.
So yes, we've been here since 1999.
All right.
Yeah.
Do you want to give a shout out for what school then? If you're from Raleigh, what school did you go for high school?
Yeah, I went to Garner Senior High School.
Wait a minute. You're in Raleigh.
Yes.
But you're at Garner.
Right. So where we stayed in Idlewood.
Okay.
So our school was Garner.
Okay.
And then a street over, I think they went to Athens, and I think a street over, they went to Broughton. So, but we actually went to
Your
Garner
cut
Senior
was
High.
going to Garner.
Yep.
But you're still part of that 27610.
Absolutely.
So can anything good come out of 27610?
A lot can come out of 27610.
All right.
Yes.
So after high school, what was your journey then?
So hindsight being 2020, right after high school, my goal was to, at that time, go to nursing school.
Okay.
So oddly enough, I was going to go to Central. My parents were
To where now?
North Carolina
Lord.
Central University. And I had my roommate picked out. I went to early orientation. I changed my mind, changed my major, and I ended up at A&T.
Now we can talk about that. That's what we could talk about.
So I ended up at A&T. My major was biology at A&T. I wanted to be a podiatrist.
Biology.
Yes, biology.
Wow, that was tough.
It was.
If I remember. Wow.
Yeah. You had some of those classes at A&T. So,
right.
I shadowed a podiatrist.
Okay.
That wasn't for me.
Okay.
So my junior year, I told my parents, I said, I think I want to change my major. I want to go back to nursing. They said, well, you know what? Finish that degree out and then consider coming back home. And then you could, so I did that. I finished my degree, finished at A&T in 1997. And now I ended up right back at Central. So I'm an Aggie Eagle.
Okay, but you went there.
Yes.
A&T first.
I did. I went to A&T first,
good.
finished in 97. Then I finished at Central in nursing in 2001.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So most of my courses transferred. So it was a blessing that I was able to go 2 years.
A&T.
Yes. A&T and then Central.
So tell me about that change, because most of us really, once we get to college, we think we're going to go with one degree, and something happened in between that sophomore, usually that junior year.
Yep.
We decide to change. How was that for you though?
It was different because, I was, like I said, I was thinking about going to nursing and then, changed. And then I changed my mind again to biology. And then I ended up at, back where I originally started, for nursing. So it was different because thinking that you knew what you wanted to do once you got A&T and then you changing your mind. So it looks as if I was indecisive. I just didn't know what to do. Right. But, I was younger. I don't regret my path at all because it was the path that God had for me.
Right.
And, it was something that I had to do. So, I had a fun time at A&T. I had, and Central was a little different because I was only in nursing school. So I did not go there the whole 4 years.
Okay.
So I am involved, currently with the Raleigh Aggie group, and then the NCCU nursing department, their alumni association. I do both. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Wow. So after that, what happened? Are you married?
Yes,
or?
I am. So interestingly enough, right after nursing school, we had one of my professors, he was saying, you guys should go to seven of us who graduated from Central. And they said, you should go to the VA and work. So, we did our clinical rotations there and, we looked at it and we ended up going there. I had my job interview and my first nurse manager, Ms. Riddick, hired me. I was on 6B. It was a medical surgical unit.
Right.
I did that for about a year. And then
how was that? Working at VA? Because first of all, I want to say to anyone that served, that thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service. Absolutely.
What does that look like at the VA?
Yeah, let me tell you, it was interesting because I started the VA August 13th, 2001. And then, as you know, what happened, 9/11.
Absolutely.
I was at the VA when 9/11 happened.
Oh, wow.
And my preceptor, she saw it on the news. She said, oh my gosh, they bombed a federal building. And then she said they bombed another federal building. And I was like, okay, this is my first job. I'm at a federal building. I said, we're at a federal building. Is this what happens on a normal basis?
Right.
So I was, I was scared, but, the veterans there are so appreciative. I remember what really drew me to the VA. I had a patient when I was in my clinical rotation, and I was in school, nursing school, and I was giving him an insulin injection. And my technique as a student was not the best, right? So I'm pretty sure, he kind of jumped a little bit.
Right.
Not intentionally trying to hurt him, but my technique, as a student. And so he said, thank you. He thanked me for giving him his insulin shot.
Right.
And that was something, I didn't really see in it,
nor expect.
Right, expect. I'm like, here I am in nursing school, and I know my technique was not the best, but still you are thanking me when I should be thanking you for your service.
Right.
And so that was one of the reasons why, I love my veteran population.
Right.
And I decided to go there. And I've been there 22 years.
22
years.
So when you got there, because you're the last of the last of a person who starts a job.
Yes.
And 20 plus years later.
Still there.
It's still there.
That's true.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you were there. What else about your journey? How about being married? Are you married now?
I am. So I think probably a year after I started. So after I did my year in on 6B, I did 8 years in ICU. During the time I was in ICU, I met my now husband, Dr. Fred Thomas.
What was he in the ICU for?
No, he wasn't in ICU. He is a veteran, but he's not in ICU. So it was funny.
Now.
No, he wasn't in ICU. I don't date my patients, but that was
I got some jokes.
Oh yeah, I know. But what happened was I remember that timeline because I had just started and I was taking my ACLS class. And it was December of 2002. Yeah, December of 2002, 2003. And I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And one of my line sisters said, LaDonna, I have somebody that I want you to meet. I said, okay, is he special? What is it about him that you want me to meet him? She said, no, he's a mega man. He's, educated. He's into church and that. So I was like, okay, I'll meet him. So I was thinking the same thing. I said, okay. So we met, they had a get together and we met and, it was interesting. If you know Fred, I was a little late. I take that after my mom, Charlotte Clark, but I was late. I was doing something and I was late getting there. And so Julie, my line sister,
are you sure that wasn't playing?
It was not playing. It was not playing. I promise you, it was not playing. So when I got there, she introduced us. And she said, well, now do you still want to leave? He said, yeah, I think I'm gonna go. And I was like, okay, fine, And, but he didn't leave. We stayed there and it was like several of us, we talked till like 2:00 in the morning. And, so there were others there. So yeah, we talked at 2:00 in the morning and our first date was at church, New Year's Eve. That year. And we went to, Elevation Baptist Church.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, on our first date. Yep. And the rest, as they say, is history. We got married in 2006.
Okay.
And we have a son, Logan Thomas. He's
Dr. Logan.
Dr. Logan.
I mean, and if you've not met Dr. Logan, he's special.
Yeah, he is. He's our miracle baby. He was born weighing 1 pound, 5 ounces.
1 pound, 5 ounces.
And we were away. We were in Savannah, Georgia. When we.
How was that? How did you, even in that, so you're away, obviously you're having him premature. So you're a premature birth, you have him, he's weighing 1.5 pounds. The survival rate, I know I'm talking to a doctor over here, but the survival rate is pretty low in those cases. So what was that like?
It was scary. I'm going to be totally transparent. It was scary. We were away from home, no family there. We ended up staying at the Ronald McDonald House, which is right across the street. They housed families if you had children that were in the hospital. So interestingly enough, the physician, the neonatologist, grabbed him, took him to his little isolette, and said, we've done all we can do. Now it's in God's hand. Oh. And that doctor was from South Africa. Oh, so it was like a full circle moment when we went to South Africa this past year. Because the first doctor
that even touched him
said
was
that
from South Africa that said, it's in God's hand.
It's in God's hand.
Oh, wow.
And so I knew it was going to be okay. But to hear that and hear a physician actually say that, that really, it really helped.
And now he's
12 years old, doing very well. He's a bright young guy. He has his own personality. But I mean, he's a joy. He really is. He's a joy.
So after marrying, eventually later having a child, did you go back to school?
I did. So when Logan graduated from preschool, I graduated from, let me back up. In 2009, after being in the ICU for 8 years, I'm like, okay, I need to do something else. It's time for a change.
And let me ask, let me pause for a second. When you say ICU for veterans, what does that look like? Because I know what ICU looks like for Wake Med, Raleigh, Duke, Rex. What does that look like at a veteran hospital?
Right. So at the VA, at our specific VA, we do not have a trauma unit. So we don't get trauma patients.
Somebody that had just been injured, shot, stabbed, those type things.
But when you look at our veteran population, many of them have long-lasting wounds. They have chronic conditions. Okay. And most of these chronic conditions will be exacerbated and likely will cause them to be in the ICU, intensive care unit, for an extensive amount of time. Wow. And then you look at their mental health. They have like post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Right. So you look at that too. And so you look at the veteran holistically and you just really empathize because they've been through a lot.
How do you apply the word when you see veterans coming in, they're in ICU, maybe a young person who stepped on a mine, maybe they've lost both legs and arms. How does applying the word, what does that look like?
So, when I see the veterans, they're sitting there, even when they, come in my office, now working outpatient, I pray for them and sometimes with them. Okay. I always pray for my veterans. I could be just taking notes, typing, and something they say to me, I lost my home. I lost this, I need money. But I do a silent prayer. And sometimes, many of times we've prayed together, and I have a veteran say, can you pray for me? Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not going to turn down a prayer. Right. But I think, applying the word is necessarily, especially in the medical field. Absolutely. Not just at the VA. If you're at Rex, if you're at UNC, you always have to apply the word. You always have to pray, stay in prayer.
And you got a chance to see that up close with your own son, 1.5 pounds. Yep. And he may have even lost because most kids, they lose weight initially. So born 1.5, but he may have gone down to 1.1 or whatever. And a doctor say, we've done all we could do. It's in God's hands.
It's in God's hands.
Is that somehow or another the comfort and the peace that you have in the medical field?
It is.
As long as you know that you've done all that you can do. It's in God's hands.
It's in God's hands.
So after that, I think you also did something. Is that it for school? I mean, you already went to A&T and then Central. Was that it?
Yeah, I went to UNCG for my nurse practitioner, adult nurse practitioner certification in 2009. And then I went to Chatham University, that's in Pittsburgh, for my doctorate.
Why? Why all of this education? I mean, why?
Yeah. I want to be an example for my son. I want him to see that education is important. Even if he, decides not to at first go to college, maybe go to a technical, Durham Tech or somewhere, and then matriculate to college, that's fine. But I want him to see that, education is important. Okay. And if I can do it, then anybody can do it. Okay. I'm no smarter than anybody else. I'm just determined. Okay. And not to say that no one else is determined, but I'm very determined.
Very determined. Mm-hmm. So how does that, you going into UNCG, what was that like? What was that? Now this is your third college. If you keep going on, you'll hit all of the ones in North Carolina. But okay, so you're now at UNCG.
Yeah. So
how was that?
It was interesting because that was my master's. So I already knew what I needed. Well, not everything that I need to know, but most of the things that I learned, A&T and Central. Okay. So by the time I went for my master's, it was easier. Okay. Because you had that foundation. Okay. And then you can build from that foundation.
So it's a myth sometimes that going to a historical Black university, you get less of an education in comparison to maybe going to a predominantly white. What were your thoughts would be?
I would not trade it for the world.
Wow.
Going to a HBCU, and actually this is the plan that I have for my son.
If he, like I said, a plan.
I do. I have a plan, but I know God's plan is greater. So I want him, so be it. He go to St. Augustine's. Hear me out. Hold on. Okay. You have something to say. That's where my husband went. So he has to go to St. Augustine's for 2 years, pledge Omega Psi Phi, because that's where Fred pledged. Then he has to transfer to A&T, graduate, actually get a degree from A&T. Okay. And then he can go to Central for law school because he wants to be he wants to be a pastor. Okay. He also wants to be a lawyer or a judge. Okay. So it's the best of all three worlds. But however, God has a plan for him. But
I'm praying right now that I'm fine with most of what you just said.
I said.
But there is one thing you talked about, fraternity.
I knew.
And we'll see who prayers get closer to God and God might answer and go from there. But no, I'm totally fine. Yeah. That's your plan that you have for him.
Yeah.
And we'll be praying for that because Dr. Logan is special. Yeah. I mean, if you ever meet Logan, it's just totally different. So you got this plan, you've gone to UNCG, and you're saying you are probably better prepared because you got your foundation at A&T and Central.
I believe so. Because when you go to HBCU, it's not, a lot of people just think it's about the partying, it's about, but no, you really do. Because here's the thing, you had professors that cared about you.
Right.
I remember at A&T, it was, I want to say zoology. And my zoology teacher, I wasn't doing as well as I would have liked to have done.
Absolutely.
I remember talking to my instructor and saying, look, I'm trying, I'm coming to your office hours. I'm going to talk to you. Right. I'm going to, try my best. And he did not give me the grade that I had. I had to work for it. Right. But, just talking to him and then working with you.
And then him explaining it.
Exactly.
Because a lot of times you think you got it in class.
Right.
Until you get back to the dorm room and you go, now, what was that?
Yep, absolutely.
And then I'm confused.
Yep, yeah.
But then to be able to have that, you can have that one-on-one and allow you to come to the office and get it.
Yeah, and that helped. Right. And like we had, great instructors, even at Central. I remember my instructor, and I still keep in contact with her, Dr. Rogers. She's no longer at Central. She's at another school, but I still keep in contact with her. And I asked her questions. I was like, what would you do if you were in this situation? Okay. Should I do X, Y, and Z? Okay. And, she still gives me advice.
Wow. Yeah. 20 plus years later.
20 plus years later.
So back to the VA. Mm-hmm. So what has happened now? I mean, so you left ICU after 8 years.
Yes.
And 8 new beginnings.
Right. 8. That's right. New beginnings.
All right. So now you left there what's going on now?
So
what do you do next?
After I left ICU, I finished my NP certification.
Okay.
I started off in compensation and pension.
Okay.
And let me tell you where God showed up and showed out.
Okay.
I interviewed for that position prior to me passing my board.
Okay.
I interviewed in April of 2010.
All right. So how does these dates stick in your head or so? I mean,
right.
You know, because you're going April 2010.
I remember that because I graduated in December 2009.
Right.
I interviewed in April of 2010, and then I took my boards in May of 2010. So I interviewed prior to me taking the boards.
Okay.
So that week while I was out taking my board, I took the whole week.
So I can prepare.
Right. So I can prepare.
Right.
And when I got back, I had an email from the hiring official telling me that, look, I need to talk to you. So I thought I was going to go for another interview. He called me to his office and he said, LaDonna, we want to hire you in compensation and pension. I said, oh, really? He said, yes, because, well, have you taken your board? I said, sir, I took my boards yesterday and I passed. He said, oh, well, good. He said, because I talked to one of your supervisors and she assured me that you would be here for a while at the VA because the VA, the National Nurses Initiative the program, they paid for me to go for my master's. And then I had some left over for my doctorate.
Okay.
So she assured me that, you're going to pay the VA back in time.
Right.
And you will be here for the long haul. And I said, that's correct. And so my first job was right out of NP school, was in compensation and pension, was a disability.
So that means then
clinic.
if a veteran is injured, even if it's been years,
right,
you're the first one they see.
That's the first one they see.
Oh, wow.
Coming out of the military or wherever we see them, and we complete their exam. If they are claiming a back injury that occurred while they were in the military, if they are claiming a foot injury, we see them and we evaluate them, and then we process their claims.
Wow. So you are key then, because when you get there, you are the first one, and many of the veterans may be scared.
Yeah.
They are hesitant. They don't know what to expect.
Right.
And this is their only hope.
Yeah, it is.
Because many of them are suffering with things that they may not be able to even share with others. So how fulfilling, are you still doing that, or how fulfilling was that?
Yeah, so I do. So I work full time at the VA, but I do contract work throughout, like on Mondays and sometimes Sundays after church.
After church,
I will go to church at 8:30, and then I will leave to go to my 9:30 appointment. So I still do that, and it's very fulfilling because I had one patient when I was at the VA. He was about to lose his home. He did lose his home. Yes, he did lose his home.
Okay.
He was homeless. He had a family. So he was depending on this exam to provide him with what he needed, the correct service connection that he needed. So, and actually it was that visit. He had several visits throughout. So I asked the psychiatrist, I asked the dental dentist if they could bundle his visits, because he would have had to come back several times for this appointment.
And he may not have gas.
He didn't.
Right.
He relied on public transportation to get him there.
Wow.
And so he was very appreciative. He wrote a letter to my supervisor letting them know that I had helped him and that he received his whatever amount that he needed, his ratings, and he was able to buy him an apartment, him and his wife an apartment, and his children.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
So what would you say to a veteran who might be listening today, who may even have had an injury?
Yeah.
Should they come? Should they apply?
They should apply. You can apply online. You can apply through a veteran service officer, a VSO. That's what I would recommend, through a VSO.
Okay.
And that way, that application will directly go to the VBA, the Veterans Benefit Administration, and they will process it that way.
Wow.
I think that's the easiest route.
That's the easiest route. So don't be scared.
Don't be scared. Oh, you can also go through the Veterans Portal. You can also go through there and you can apply that. So there's several ways.
when I think about it, your journey, did you think it was going to end like this? And it's not ending.
Yeah.
This is just a chapter, but where you are today.
Mm-hmm. I had no idea. You know, it's an African proverb that says, if you see a turtle on a fence post, you know that turtle had help getting there.
Right.
And I always use that because I'm that turtle. If it were not for God, I would not be on that fence post. I would not be where I am today. And God actually sent a village for me. He sent my parents, my mom, who's deceased. He sent my dad. And
we also miss her.
Yeah, we do. Every day I think about her. So they always instilled in my brother and me, you know, don't be afraid to be different, whatever that looks like.
Okay.
You know, you don't have to be a follower, but just be yourself. And if that's different, then that's fine. That's your different. So I still live by that, and I still try to tell Logan that as well.
Has that helped you through that when your mom?
It did. And I think what has helped me is the fact that I knew she knew God.
Right.
And she passed away in her sleep. Right. And as she taught Eric and me how to say our prayers before we go to sleep, I know she said her prayers before she went to sleep that night. So that's really given me peace, because it was a sudden passing of her, passing away.
Hadn't been sick.
She had not been sick, and it was not COVID.
Right.
As a matter of fact, 2 weeks prior, she had gone to her physician and had a clean bill of health. She was only on a few medications, blood pressure and cholesterol.
Right.
Her cholesterol levels had gone down and her blood pressure levels had gone down. So she was in good health. And I remember when my uncle, who passed exactly 8 months, her younger brother passed
8 months later.
8 months prior to that,
right? Like it was, it's like the December 31st.
Absolutely. Remember that.
Right.
And she, on the way back from the funeral, she said, when God takes me, I hope he takes me in my sleep.
Oh, wow.
And he did, yeah.
And he answered that.
Mm-hmm.
And I still use her phrase now.
Yeah.
What's that phrase?
People are dying today that have never died before.
I use that phrase.
I used to say, well, Mama, they haven't. She said, I know Willette. That's my middle name. I know Willette, but they just haven't died. I was like, okay, Mama. Yeah.
So look, in conclusion, you're helping out with a new chapter. We'll talk about that at some other time. Yeah. But you're also over our health and wellness. Yes. Mm-hmm. Could you say something in conclusion about your temple and how to apply the word of God as you take care of your temple? Right.
So we always have to, look at ourselves before we look at how we help others.
Right.
I recently finished a course as a faith community nurse, and they teach us to, look at the situation. When something is happening in the church, ask yourself, is it, clergy or critical?
Right.
If it's clergy, if someone is slain in the spirit, you can go to the side, let the clergy take care of it, but you pray. Right. If it's clinical, you take care of the patient or the member and go from there. But I think one thing I do want to mention, as I mentioned earlier, we went to South Africa.
Right.
And one of the main initiatives, and I know Dr. Robinson, you really wanted us to make sure that we keep this on our radar.
Absolutely.
We met with many of the members of a hospital, and I cannot pronounce the name, in South Africa.
Absolutely.
And we're helping as a team at Juniper level and the community.
Absolutely.
We're helping that hospital with supplies, sending supplies, collecting supplies, such as, we're trying to get hospital beds. We're working on that. Sheets.
I think they said gowns.
Blood pressure cuffs.
Absolutely.
Things we take for granted here in the States, they are in need of.
Right.
And I think it's important. Charity starts at home. We do understand that, but it's also important to help our sisters and brothers over in South Africa.
And I think that somehow or another, God did a full circle. Mm-hmm. That's what you said. The first person that touched your son, doctor, it's in God's hand.
It's in God's hand.
He's from South Africa. And now the same son gets a chance to go with us over to South Africa and being able to go to the hospital and pray. And that's what we did.
Yeah.
Look, we're going to have to come back and invite her back again. It's been awesome on applying the word. We've had Sister LaDonna with us. I'm sorry, Dr. LaDonna with us here today and applying the word. I look forward to seeing you next time. To God be the glory.
To God be the glory.